Talk about the past, present, future of horizontal directional drilling. And our moderator is Dr. Samuel Aradnian from Arizona State University. And he has a lot of little alphabetic things behind his name. He can tell you about all these things that he is doing and has accomplished. And he's going to moderate and introduce the panel, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Bernie. Well, thanks for coming out here to this panel on horizontal directional drilling, present and future market segments. It's an exciting industry. It's an exciting time for our industry. And so we've got some three distinguished panelists, and we're going to kind of go over the market segment. But before that, I'm going to introduce all of them. So Todd Michaels from Vermeer. He's a product manager for Trenches Products, and he's been involved in the utility and pipeline industry for quite a while. 20 years plus experience in HDD, 16 in drilling and underground tooling development from the engineering side, and 4 years now as product manager of HD Underground Products. Next is Kenny Clever. Kenny is VP of Sales and Marketing for American Augers, and he's been in the industry for 20 years. Part of his bio says he's been married for 33 years, has 3 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Pretty good. Hope to get there one day. and Seth Matheson. He's the HD Product Manager for Ditch Witch. He's been in the industry for 28 years and 4 years as a product manager and was in sales prior to that. I've been in the industry since 1996, involved in research and development and a lot of education and training in horizontal directional drilling. And I saw some albums from the old HD rodeos that we used to have back in the day, and I was one of the judges for that particular competition. So it's kind of bring me back to way back then. Well, let's talk about the industry. So I want to kind of start out about these, the trends seem to be looking pretty good for HDD these days. And I want to just ask you, Todd, in the natural gas distribution, where do you see things going in that market?
Well, from my perspective, we see that market staying fairly steady. Distribution is mainly in replacement. We see a lot of replacement going on. We feel it's going to be fairly strong, but it's strong in certain locations and other locations that we just don't see much going on at all. But for a lot of it, we think right now, with lower housing development going on in the country and around the world, that the majority of the work is replacing old lines and just replacing the infrastructure that's been in the ground for some time.
Yeah, I think I would just echo what Todd says. I think we've definitely seen an uptick in our industry here in the last 8 or 9 months specifically, and we got a lot of excited contractors out there. I'm hearing comments like we're bidding more work than we have in years, where everybody is looking at some new projects, and so it's pretty exciting to see that it's really coming to life there as of late.
Seth, what do you see in that market?
I would echo the same. It is regional. We're seeing hotspots in a lot of areas, and while we're seeing general contractors staying really busy, and the subs aren't as needed as they have been in the past in that industry, but the distribution side seems to be stable.
So where would those hotspots be? Where do you think? What part of the country? Texas? East Coast?
Well, a lot of it's in East Coast. It's really by city and by area who has the funds to go be able to go spend the money on those projects. So we see a little bit even in Latin America and Mexico, and some even in Canada. So it's kind of spread out.
So what I'm seeing in the gas distribution, and that's the 6-inch to about 12-inch, is that we're seeing a lot of these the gas companies like PG&E, Southwest Gas that I'm familiar with in my part of the country. They're undergoing this big program that's going to last probably 10 years plus, and it's where they're starting with replacing all of their existing infrastructure that was built in the 1970s and before. And really, it's not about whether they're in good shape or not. It's we have to replace it. It's being mandated because of the fact that if we do have a gas problem or a leak in a gas line, some issue. Because remember, a lot of those old gas lines, they weren't plastic. They were PVC, but a lot of them were steel or iron type pipe systems that have gotten old and aged over time. So I'm seeing a lot of these types of projects. I know locally in Phoenix area, we're looking at about $225 million a year just in gas replacement. That's a lot of money just in one city. So if you take that and you multiply that out to many different markets, and I've talked to contractors in California that are doing the PG&E work, and they say it's really busy just trying to get all those new distribution systems. All of them are in urban areas where HCD is a really big role. So with that, I think what we're seeing is a lot of those smaller rigs, with the smaller rigs, easier entry for contractors to get into, are really starting to take off in that market. How are you seeing your small rig market going these days?
Small and medium-sized rigs are definitely the hot spot in sales at this current time, not only related to gas, but certainly a good portion of that is going into the gas replacement market. And we really see that, the 24,000 pound rig or 40,000 pound rig and smaller doing a lot of that work. Occasionally we'll see some 60s doing that work, but now you're starting to get into more of the pipeline side of things. So definitely good business, good time to be in the small drill business.
Jeff, anything to add on that, on the gas
Yeah,
market?
if you look over a 5-year history, the market is stable to an uptick. But in that 5-year time span, you really see the size of drills changing, where it might have been larger drills back 4 or 5 years ago. Now the smaller drills, 30,000 pound and below, are really seeing an uptick and swing. Part of that's natural gas, electric, but the majority of it's probably the fiber industry and communications.
Now for those of you, what we define as small directional drill, those are under 40,000 pounds of thrust pullback. Medium size are 40 to 100,000 pounds of thrust pullback. And then over 100,000 are the large directional drills that we define. What about, I'll go to you again, Seth. What about the telecom market? We keep hearing about it. I remember back in the late 90s, we had this big uptick with level 3, all kinds of telecom. Everybody was making money, the stock was doing well, and then boom, almost overnight, it just fell apart, and then we had this big downturn in the economy, downturn in telecom, but I don't know, I'm hearing good things about it. What's your perspective?
So obviously there's a chase for 5G. Anyone who has kids in the room, and if you can have a dinner without everybody being on the phone, it's tough. Everybody's wanting video streaming, so that broadband, just that need for communication is out there. Everybody's chasing it. It's the AT&Ts, the Googles, the CenturyLinks, Verizon. It's everyone. So we really see a good uptick in that market in the next 5 to 7 years.
And I'd echo the same, everybody being connected and wanting more and more data, as Seth said, with kids and the video and, Facebook driving that, Netflix, all those things that drive that, and connecting those towers for all the mobile devices, certainly expect that market to grow. We do see some regional hotspots and some spots that see lags, but they're typically very temporary lags, and then they'll be back in business in a year or so, going like gangbusters again. And we'd expect that to happen for the next several years.
So what about this Google Fiber project? That was supposed to be the big thing. It was going, everybody was excited about that. What's happened there?
Well, Google, in my perspective, they've helped kickstart the rest of the industry in chasing that 4 and 5G market. They've certainly tried to build their own customer base. But from what I understand of that, there's the other players, the AT&T and the CenturyLinks, aren't going to give up their business to Google easily, and they're going to continue to improve their networks. So if it did anything at all, it's kept those other players in the market chasing better communication systems.
Kenny, any comments on that?
We get a little bit involved there because of we only start out at 110,000 pound machines, so we don't touch that market specifically quite so much. We get involved a little bit in some of the trunk lines and things, but I would agree. I think that Google has definitely anteed up, and I think you're going to see the competitors step up, and I think it's going to challenge everybody to better their systems, and it's going to create work for a lot of people.
So those of you who aren't aware of it, Google started a big project, a Google Fiber project. They started in Kansas City with horizontal directional drills, and then they were in Utah and in Austin, and they had certain cities that they were planning on doing, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And I think part of that is that customer base wasn't willing to pay that excess money to have that high internet rates that they were offering on that. I mean, for a personal home, it's kind of what's the willingness to pay. But with that said, right now, the Verizons, the AT&Ts are embarking on huge projects. I know I saw the plans in Arizona for Phoenix for Verizon, and they're anticipated to keep 48 small directional drill rigs busy for the next 3 to 5 years, just on that one project in one city. So if we look at it in many different cities, that looks like a really good opportunities for, once again, that small rig, that under 40,000 pound market for the drilling industries.
Yeah, depending on where the projects are, really is going to depend on what size rig. If you're in an area that has decent ground, they're going to be on the smaller end. But there's going to be some areas like we saw in Austin, a few other areas where they need a little larger rigs to do even those 4-inch, 5-inch holes. So that's going to be. And the big thing that I've seen, kind of a little bit of an outsider from an OEM's perspective, is I think part of their business plan was to jumpstart some plans from the other companies. So to go out there, yes, be a competitor, but just get that broadband system updated.
Yeah, I think we're certainly the streaming part of it is really important, and we're doing a lot more streaming of sporting events and television shows and Netflix and HBO and all of that stuff. So it's really getting more broadband is going to be very important as we go forward with the technological advancements that we have just in general. So it brings me to the pipeline market. Kenny, this is kind of your bread and butter, and Todd as well. But Kenny, what do you think about the oil and gas pipeline? I mean, we had a time there where there's going to be a lot of pipeline projects, and then they were put on hold. And now, what's happened to it?
Well, I think it wasn't very long ago when, the oil prices started falling and everybody started burning the furniture and everything kind of stopped. So we kind of sat around thinking that, well, if we could just get oil prices to get back up around $65 or $70, maybe $80. Initially it was, it bottom and fell out of it. We were hoping to get back to $50 a barrel. And at what point could we really get this industry jumped again? Well, what we really found out was when we had a change in our administration, and our new president stood up there and said, hey, we're gonna complete these projects. We're gonna get this going. We're gonna finish that. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna deregulate. And then it turned the focus away from just the vertical oil business, and it said all of these major companies suddenly thought, now's our chance. So we've seen a huge upturn in, it just seems like the owners of these projects, they feel like, well, we might have the next 3.5 years to get as much pipe in the ground as we possibly can, as quickly as possible. And so they're bringing back burner projects to the front burner. We're seeing a lot of pipeline activity right now, and so that's been a very good thing for the pipeline industry.
Don, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree. The last several months of this year, last 3 or 4 months of this year, for sure, we have seen a jump start in North America, primarily the U.S., and we'd expect that to continue to slowly increase. We had to put a lot of drillers back to work before. I think the retail side of this, from an equipment standpoint, is really going to see a huge boost, but we are already seeing some improvements in the market from an OEM standpoint.
From our product line goes up to 100,000 pounds, but what we've seen is the whole good side of it still is kind of slow. But if you look at retail sales and what's going on in retail, that's upticking and it's going in the right direction. Canada is still fairly soft, but we're seeing again some Gulf areas where those pipelines are actually starting to take off. We've seen the same thing in the last 9 months.
And to add to that, I think with Canada being soft, from my understanding, talking to some pipeline owners and some of our dealer network in that area, they believe that's more regulatory problems with government too, that's kind of holding that back, and are looking for maybe some changes up there to help deregulate some of those projects and get them jump started again.
Well, in my discussion with some of the drillers that have the big machines, those over 100,000 pound machines that are working in pipelines, they're all pretty busy. I think all their machines are out. And when we talk about pipeline projects, what are some of the big pipeline projects? Well, I'll tell you, the Atlantic Sunrise, it's a $3.2 billion project in the East Coast. There's the Mariner Pipeline going across Pennsylvania. That's a $4.7 billion project. And then there's the Rover project that's going from Pennsylvania up to Ontario, Canada. It's a $4.2 billion project. So we talk about these projects, and a lot of them are natural gas type projects. So large diameter steel pipe, big rigs, river crossings, all these machines are out there. But now we have a big problem. And the problem is, the big thing in the construction industry today, workforce development. So how are we staffing all of these people? What's the solution, or what do you guys think we need to do?
Well, one of the things that I've heard from our contractors as of late is, because you're exactly right, the big problem is to find skilled operators and skilled crews that you can trust a spread with. Because when you're talking about a $2 million directional drill, that's the tip of the iceberg on that spread. They've got a lot of money invested into the equipment on that job, and their reputation's also on the line. So in lack of being able to find more and better qualified people, oftentimes what we're seeing is this is part of the reason that they are upgrading to new equipment, just because the efficiencies, the uptime, not just in fuel efficiencies, but the efficiencies of the rigs overall, and because of the lack of breakdowns, older machines, they break down. So they need to get more work done with the same amount of people, or in some cases less people, because right now, if you're in this industry, you're probably being recruited at some level somewhere. So people are trying to retain their help, and they're trying to take care of them, but they also know they need to get more work done with what they've got. So I think that's been a benefit to us as a manufacturer, because we've seen a lot of equipment being replaced just because of the efficiency factors.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think modern equipment making it easier for drillers to operate, being able to set some limits and things like that, so the driller doesn't get himself in trouble, helps that beginning driller out, especially if there's at least somebody in that company that can kind of give some guidance on where they should be running at. And we definitely feel there's a need for additional training. The pipeline side of things is more difficult to train and get practical training, just because of the equipment size and the setup it takes to do that. But we're also kind of chasing this common operation of small equipment and large, mainly so that we can make it that transition from operating a little bit smaller rig to a larger rig easier. So I think that's going to be a trend in the market, and I know both of you guys are doing the same things.
Yeah, three biggest things we always hear is the cross-bore and how to deal with cross-bores, mud disposal, and then just labor force. And so I think all of us in the industry as a whole have to continue down that training piece. All of us up here have training plans, and whether it's RPR or on-site training, factory training, everyone has a program trying to help with that. But that's a big challenge, and I think one thing that was positive for me going to ConExpo, saw kind of the micros make hard work cool again. That's going to be a challenge for us as an industry, and I think we just have to continue to work together to try to help that.
I think, those are very important points, because there's work out there, but there just aren't enough workers to even do the work, and so you guys as manufacturers kind of lose out on additional sales, because the contractors want to buy more equipment, they just don't have people to operate those equipment. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's a good thing, but yet they have to backfill those positions somehow and try to make those projects. But I do see really positive things with the pipeline type work. I mean, there are, when we're going into wetlands or environmentally sensitive areas, when we're going under water bodies, you have to use directional drilling. There really isn't an option, or too many options there that you have available to do those kind of bores, so that's kind of positive. I know internationally, what are we seeing internationally? I know I've seen all of you guys internationally. I live, half the time I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and half the time I live on United Airlines. So. But where do you see, where do you see it?
I'd say from my standpoint, we're looking there again at the larger rigs, whether it's directional drills in mud systems or trenchers. Right now, probably our next good hot spot's probably going to be Algeria. Believe it or not, there's a fair bit of things trying to happen over that way. We do a fair bit of business in South Africa. So I don't know. I think Europe's still
Nigeria is big for you too.
Yeah, as well. I think Europe's still lagging behind us just a little bit there, so we're really not seeing a whole lot. A slight uptick maybe in the UK lately, but really it's China and Southeast Asia are still very slow for us right now.
So,
Our hottest spots are really northern Europe, Germany, up through Sweden, Finland. That's a hot spot. All of Europe has been soft for the last 3 to 5 years, but exchange rate obviously affects that. But Australia's starting to see some stability, but the Asia-Indian market's still really soft.
Yeah, well, if you look at it from an industry standpoint, I think there's tremendous amounts of fiber going on around the world. Definitely hot spots here and there, India being strong. You know, China's been down a little bit. That doesn't mean they're not selling a lot of products in China, but the North American product line isn't traveling there much. You know, so it's primarily Asian-built products that are serving the market. European market, as far as the communication stuff, you know, I'd echo Seth. We're seeing similar things. We do see some things in South Africa, both pipeline and small end, but primarily what I experience is more on the fiber end and communication side down that direction. South America, that's a tough market right now. So, you know, kind of echo the same thing as you guys said.
yeah, I agree with you. I think Southeast Asia, I think Indonesia is a country that has a lot of potential. They have a big population. They have a lot of natural resources, a lot of oil and gas. And I think that, and of course, really crowded population. So I think right now that is a future potential market in Southeast Asia. Vietnam eventually, I think, could get there. Right now, they're still trying to figure things out. And as you mentioned, China is still a big market. However, you guys taught them how to do it, and now they're building their own. So right now, they've got their own. In fact, I was just over there last week, and before that, the longest project that I was aware of was 11,000 feet done in China a couple years ago. 3 bores of 11,000 feet. But then last week, they did a pilot bore of 17,000 feet, one project. They haven't pulled it back yet, so it's not completed yet. But if they do complete that project, that'll shatter any records that we've seen in terms of distance for HDD. I mean, going from 11,000, which was a lot, to 17,000 is incredible. It's a jet fuel line from the airport underneath the harbor, so it'll be quite amazing. Any questions from the audience? You know, we've got 3 experts here. Any questions you want to know about the market or HDD or anything like that? It's like my class in school, right? Nobody asks questions. Nobody's got a question? Yeah, okay. The young man in the back, you have a question? Yes. Sorry, could you say that a little louder?
Oh, thank you, young man. How does our market compare here to Europe? Because I know all 3 of these organizations, as well as you personally, travel the world and get a feel for HDD. Are we going faster? Better?
We're number 1.
I would say that, you know, in years past, our international market has been a very strong piece of our business. In the last 2 years, that has not been the case. We are doing the majority of our business right now here in North America, and we're just starting to see our international interest pick up. We're finally quoting equipment again. We're not moving a whole lot overseas just yet, but I do see, you know, it's good. You can't sell anything until you show an interest. We get the ability to quote. We learn about new projects that are coming up that are getting approved. So the indicators are there. We have pockets, like we talked about, sections of the world where things are starting to uptick. But frankly, right now, the heartbeat is right here, you know, in North America, and primarily in the lower 48. for American
Looking at the
auto
lower 48, regionally where in the lower 48? Southeast, southwest?
Right now, it's been, for us, most of it's been east of the Mississippi. It's been related in that big pipeline business, in the Rover and the Sunoco Mariner, and so that's been a real strong. You know, everybody got really excited, went crazy to work, and then we had some FERC issues, and we were trying to get past. You know, we thought, well, we're going to get the green light, we're going to get deregulated, everybody's going to go like crazy, and then we had a FERC panel that dissolved from under us. And so we've had this intentional or unintentional, however you want to look at it. I won't get into your politics, but for the reasons that a lot of us know about, we were unable to get some things approved and set forth. So we're now back into a situation where we expect things to really ignite and take off again in this eastern United States pipeline business.
Todd, how about you, Jeff? Same comments?
I mean, it's hard to kind of guesstimate the total market, but we're definitely the largest. If you look at, we don't get all the information from Asia, but if you look at the total number of units that's shipped over into different parts of the country besides North America, I mean, it's less than 30%. So if you add in what we think might be out of the Asia market, we definitely still are by far the largest part of the HED market.
Todd, any comments?
Yeah, North America is definitely the biggest market for us as well. We've seen a little bit reduction in the market size outside of North America, primarily the strong dollar. Strong dollar has hurt that. And, you know, we're a little more isolated here in North America. You know, the three of us compete pretty hard against each other in the North American market, and we're isolated from some of the Asian-produced products and some of the European-produced products. Although we see some of them here, we just don't see great volumes. We go into Europe, that's a different story. We've got some competitors there that we don't typically go up against here. And so, and with the strong dollar, they've got some advantages. You know, there's new competitors in India and the Chinese market. My expectations are they make a lot of drills. They just don't leave the Asia-Pacific area much. You know, we're starting to see them, you know, spread out a little bit, but we're pretty isolated here. So I think North America is still the largest market, but, you know, the data isn't real available on what those true volumes are outside of here. So.
Yeah, I followed the Chinese directional drilling market since 2003, and there's about 25 to 30 different manufacturers of drills just in China alone. So put that in perspective, that's a pretty big, you know, competition that you're looking at, and they don't have the standards that these three gentlemen have with their So one last thing, my thoughts are that I think that we keep talking on the Hill about this infrastructure bill and $1 trillion in infrastructure, and certainly our buried infrastructure would be a big part of it. Now, if we can get that, don't you think that's going to open up the municipal market even more? What are your thoughts? Start with you.
You know, we try our best just to be prepared for those type of situations because we have to, a lot of the lead time parts are the same for all of us. I mean, they're 9 months a year, even longer out. So we try to stay on top of that. I thought something might have happened quicker than it has. Yeah, it hasn't. I figured we see a little bit bigger uptick. I've only seen some. So it's more of us just trying to continue to talk to customers, continue to talk to each other, and understand the market as a whole. So we're all ready to be able to provide solutions to the customers.
Okay, municipal market?
Yeah, I think that the general public's expectations of their local infrastructure is right on the verge here. I think it seemed like about 20 years ago when we had municipality work, it was pushed through and approved and the money was allocated, and those projects seemed like they didn't get delayed. They got voted on, they got approved, they got paid for it, and they just happened. And nowadays, with so many things going on, I think we've seen that be reeled back in, and they're trying to be more frugal. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, what we do, the products that we sell to, that they're underground, they're not seen. So people don't see. You know, they drive by, they see the bridges, they see the overpasses, they see the problems in the above ground infrastructure. So that's where they want to put their money. And I think there's been a pretty good focus in the last probably a couple of years here as to how important it is for us to start looking when we start seeing water main breaks and we start seeing gas ruptures. It's shedding a new light on the fact that, guys, we got more infrastructure here to worry about than just bridges and overpasses. And we have to start taking a proactive look at improving these lines. And as we see more and more developments coming in, the older systems are just being overwhelmed. And so I think as that passes and we get a little more focus and a little more money to the locals, then I think that will help us definitely.
Yeah, it's the same thing with, what Seth said and us trying to predict that market. We hear that, we've heard it quite a bit over the years that we're going to put money into that infrastructure. Roads seem to be the thing, as we've stated. They're visible. You talk to people outside this industry that don't understand construction and aren't involved in water, they never think there's a problem with the sewer line until they physically have experienced it. Somebody close in their neighborhood, they've got water failure, and so they don't think about it much, and therefore they're not pushing for those projects as much. And so I still struggle to say it's going to happen, just because even though we're going to spend money on infrastructure, it may not be the infrastructure that affects us three companies as OEMs that much. Hopefully it does, but it's kind of a wait and see, and hopefully we can predict it's right, and that we're prepared to provide equipment when it does happen.
Well, the American Society of Civil Engineers infrastructure report card comes out every 4 years, and it came out in March of this year and was presented to Congress. And the overall grade given to the wastewater system was a D. Water went up a little bit to D+. But it's still, the overall infrastructure, including bridges and roads and airports and everything, was a D+. So we have a big problem with our pipeline type infrastructure, and I think that a lot of that is going to be part of the educational process. It's having those owners and agencies understand that horizontal directional drilling is a solution, a minimally invasive solution for addressing those water and wastewater needs in urban environments, which is what we're looking at. And I'm pretty optimistic that eventually, but I agree with you, you have to be cautiously optimistic about what the future will be. But I think that certainly, if that market can ever take off, I think it'll be a very, very strong market for our industry. Any last questions? Okay, well, we're running out of time, and I'd like to thank our panelists for your expert opinion. And I guess the bottom line is that the future looks very promising for directional drilling. And thank you all for attending this session, and happy drilling. Thanks.
Okay, let's get this guy in.